Alright, so let's talk about it. 2003 Toyota Camry. This one, it's an XLE. It was bought in 2016 from a private seller. This XLE has alloy wheels, and when I bought it, it needed some repairs. Three things basically needed right away. Actually, four things. The exhaust flex pipe was leaking. The windshield had a crack. There was loud clunking in the rear when going over bumps. And the tail light on the passenger side was smashed, and also this corner was dented in. And you can see here, got a new, well, salvage tail light, and the bump, the damage, the dents had been mostly removed. I did it myself, and obviously I didn't get it all, but I got it close enough and good enough, in my opinion, for an old car like this, a 13 years old when it was bought. And you can see also the paint on the bumper cover has been scuffed off and touched up. The touch-up paint I got off eBay, it was inexpensive, and it turned out to be really not good for much. It was more like a nail polish that it just didn't last. But anyway, I put a hitch on this. It's able to tow a 1,000-pound trailer, which I do about 3 times a year. These are good, solid cars. The reason I bought it, I chose the Camry, is because of their reliability. And also economy. These are very common, and parts are easy to find, and there's competing sellers who will, offer reasonable prices. So it's easy to find parts, and they're not expensive. At least the aftermarket ones. You go to a dealer, they still get some pretty good money for their parts. I live in New England, where they salt the roads, and rust is a big issue up here, especially when you got a car that's 13 years old. This particular car, the owner was a grandmother, and she had grandchildren in Florida, so the car spent a lot of time in Florida, and it wasn't getting rusty at all that time. Another feature that this car has that doesn't come standard or anything is a remote starter, and I like that, being in New England again. It also has heated leather seats, which again, it's nice to have in the cold climates. Now, I bought this in the warm weather, so I didn't know that the driver's side seat heater was defective until the cold weather came along. But I was able to fix it by dismantling the seat and I didn't even have to buy a new heating element. I just soldered the brake together and put it back together, and we're back in business. You may ask, why buy an old car? Well, I make my own repairs, so I can save a fair amount of money on labor. So even though it's an old car and it's going to need a little more maintenance than a new car, it's worth it to me. Also, I can save money by not paying for collision and comprehensive insurance every year, since the car is only worth a few $1,000s. It had 154,000 miles when I bought it. It's now at 181,000, and it burns very little oil, and it leaks very little oil, and I think that's doing pretty good. I did use an additive in the gas. It's a Chevron product that decarbonizes the engine, and I think that actually helped with the reducing the minimal oil consumption that it already had. Because when you get a high mileage car, carbon does have a little build up inside the engine, or it can, and if it gets the rings stuck on the pistons, you'll find your consumption of oil is increased. So decarbonizing the engine may well be worth it if you're having some oil consumption. Oh yeah, there was also a mud flap missing on the front. This side has it. When I bought it, the other side did not. And you can see there, I bought an aftermarket replacement mud flap and stuck it on there. It was inexpensive. I also added this backup camera and monitor in the dash. Oh, and one of the other defects when I bought this was the trunk light didn't work. And I found out that the latch apparently had been closed on something and it was bent, causing the switch to jam. So all I had to do was straighten that out, and the trunk light started working again. I put this backup camera in because I wanted to just make it a little easier to hitch up a trailer, and it really does make a big difference. Very easy for one person to line it up, get it positioned, and hitch up a trailer. So that's why I went with the center mount camera here, so that the alignment would be easy. I considered getting one that would fit in replacement of one of the license lights, but that would have thrown it off center. It would have been nice for unobtrusive looks, because this one does it sticks out and it's very obvious, but it is functional. Now I got this, I did a bunch of research on eBay, and I got the system, the monitor and the camera through eBay from a Chinese seller, and it's okay, but the brackets it started rusting immediately, and I had to paint it. And the monitor, it doesn't hold its position. It's got a ball mount. It's here, and on the back it's got a swivel ball joint, which is not able to hold the monitor in position for very long. So I had to put in a little mechanical stop so that it wouldn't fall down after driving a little bit. Oh, I also added a switch right here so that I can turn it on anytime I want. It goes on automatically because it is hooked up to the transmission, so that when you put it in reverse, it comes on automatically. But you can just switch it on, and you see. Yeah. Well, it's the greatest angle there. Anyway, there's the backup camera. So I can switch it on anytime I want to look at the trailer or whatever. Yeah. So right there. Alright. This has, right here, automatic temperature control. I actually like that feature because one of the things it does is it won't start blowing air until the engine has some hot air to blow. So it waits until it warms up a little bit, and then it's automatic to whatever temperature you set it at. It's pretty accurate too. Now I mentioned the clunking in the back, the rear when going over bumps. It sounded like somebody was in the trunk with a hammer banging around. It turns out that was the stabilizer bar bushings. They they don't last forever. They wear out, so it's an inexpensive fix. I replaced them on the front bar also. I've replaced the McPherson struts all around. I bought this from a private party, so it was pretty dirty inside, so it needed a thorough cleaning. Let's see, it's got the leather seats, the heated leather seats. As I mentioned, I appreciate having the heat. Oh yeah, another thing I noticed when I got it, a number of the bulbs in this dashboard, I think it was this section actually, were burned out, and they need to be replaced. It's not a big deal. I was actually able to find the bulbs online, and oh yeah, if you want more on the backup camera, I have another video on that. I put some LEDs in because like I mentioned, some of the bulbs are burning out here and there. One is in the dome light, and I have another video on that separately. Being a XLE, it has a moon roof. Not something I would have chosen to have, but when you buy a used car, you get what you get, and you decide whether you getting what you want enough or not. It's a trade-off. Basically, you know, a car this age, the main thing is condition. It isn't so much whether you're getting a moonroof or not. Matter of fact, you know, you're not paying a whole lot because of the depreciation, you know, so the moonroof doesn't add a whole lot to the value of the car. So I put in LEDs in the dome, the center brake light, and the rear tail lights on the top, the little ones, and the trunk light. Also replaced the cabin air filter. It was full of debris. Probably never even been changed as far as I could tell. I bought one, you know, you can get them with carbon or not. And I thought, well, the carbon one looked like it might have more filter element to it, but I don't think it did actually. So I probably won't. I wouldn't buy another one with carbon, you know, crumbs in it. Costs a little more. Alright, I did replace the steering shaft recently because there was just a little bit of play in one of the universal joints. It's accessible from underneath the dashboard, and it didn't make a whole lot of difference, but it wasn't terribly expensive either. This particular car has the 4-cylinder, 2,540 cc's. It's a desert sand mica color. The car was built in Kentucky. And it has several features as standard equipment. I'm going to go through those now. As I mentioned, the 4-cylinder is a twin cam. It's got 16 valves. It's got variable valve timing. There's front-wheel drive. It's got a 4-speed automatic, electronically controlled transmission. The tires are slightly wider than the typical LE, which is it's a 215/60 R16 radial tire. It's got daytime running lights. It's got an anti-lock brake system. It's got driver passenger multi-stage airbags, 3-point seat belts with ALR/ELR passenger belts. It's got side impact door beams, child restraint system latch. On the exterior, it's got auto off headlamps. It's got the alloy wheels, solar energy absorbing glass, which means that they're slightly tinted. It's got body side molding with chrome. It's got fog lamps. It's got a chrome rear garnish. As far as comfort and convenience, it's got, like I mentioned, the automatic climate control, air conditioning with rear seat vents. It's got a 6 CD in-dash changer with 8 speakers in 6 locations. It's got color key dual power heated outside mirrors, power auto up down driver window, power door locks with a home link. That means it doesn't start unless you have the right key, electronic key. The power driver and passenger seats. It's got a wood grain interior trim, auto dimming rear view mirror, and cruise control. This mirror also has a compass in it. The multi-info display with steering mounted controls gives you the miles per gallon, average miles per gallon, gives you average speed, gives you estimated time, it calculates the distance remaining on the fuel you have in the tank, and it's a bunch of interesting information. It's also got variable intermittent windshield wipers. It's got a security system with keyless entry, rear 60/40 split fold down seat, manual rear sunshade, and cargo net. Cargo net is missing on this car. So the manufacturer's suggested retail price on this car was $22,295, and it has the optional equipment, the driver and front passenger side curtain airbags. That was a $500 option. It's got heated driver and passenger seats, was a $315 option. The XLE Premium Plus package, leather trim package with driver and passenger power seats, 16-inch alloy wheels, P215/60R 16 all-season tires. Power tilt slide moonroof, that was a $2,538 option, and they had the cargo carpet and mat set for $184, plus a delivery, processing, and handling fee of $485, for a total of $26,309 manufacturer suggested retail price. This car, according to the EPA, it has a 23 miles per gallon in the city rating, and on the highway it's 32 miles per gallon. I average combined about 29 to 30 miles per gallon. Now let's talk about the engine. This, as I mentioned, I think I mentioned, this has a timing chain, and has a lot more room in the engine compartment, being a 4-cylinder than the 6-cylinder. If you want to change the spark plugs, you got to take apart a whole bunch of stuff on the engine to get at the rear 3. So the work that I've had to do on this car is I've changed the power steering fluid, and I put on another clamp on the hose. They tend to leak rather readily because they just use these inexpensive spring clamps. I've replaced this engine mount, which was totally blown. I've replaced the valve cover gasket. I've checked the starter. It has already been replaced. Cleaned the throttle body and the mass airflow sensor. This here is the mass airflow sensor, and they do need cleaning once in a while. You'll get otherwise you'll get an engine check engine light. Let's see. Also check the spark plugs. I decarbonized the cylinder with a Chevron additive. Replaced the air filter, replaced the coolant, the steering rack bellows on the passenger side replaced, recharged the air conditioning, the water pump, replaced that. For a long time the car was squealing, and I did not think it was anything important. in my experience, if the water pump is on its way out, it'll start dripping coolant. And this one was not leaking. And what happened was one day it failed catastrophically, causing the serpentine belt to just come right off. And the bearing was so bad on the water pump, even though it wasn't leaking, the bearing had gone, and you can't get very far without the serpentine belt and the water pump working because it runs your alternator, which charges the battery, and the water pump, which cools the engine, and the power steering, which, you know, allows you to steer without too much difficulty. So my recommendation, if you've got a squeal, a metallic sounding squeal that might be coming from your water pump, you better not neglect it. Alright, so I also had to replace the serpentine belt because, you know, they get old. I replaced the tensioner on the serpentine belt. I broke it myself, so I can't really blame the manufacturer for wearing out. I replaced the front brake rotors and the pads. Replaced the parking brake shoes. They had just deteriorated over time, and the lining on one side had come unglued from the metal backing. The battery is just about 5 years old now, and it's going to be due for replacement soon. The exhaust pipe flange, I had to replace one of those, rusted away. But I was able to weld a new one on, and that was pretty inexpensive fix. I recently replaced the tires. You know, obviously any car you're going to have to replace the tires on a regular basis. Check the valve clearance. I did replace the drive shaft. It had a bad boot, and the inner joint had some play due to wear. Mentioned the fuel economy. So overall, I'm very pleased with this car. It has two things I don't like. Number one, it wanders at highway speed. It's probably repairable. I haven't figured it out yet, though. And number two, there is slack in the transmission, which is noticeable when transitioning between accelerating and decelerating. That, I think, is probably not worth repairing. The ride is smooth, the suspension is soft, handling is okay, with significant body roll and little road feel. It's an economical, reliable, solid car, especially with a 4-cylinder engine. The 6-cylinder is a less economical engine due to maintenance and fuel cost, but it is a solid option. Looking ahead, I expect this car to reach 300,000 miles without major repairs. I'll be watching the hoses. The 2003 Camry is one of the 5th generation Camrys, which were made from 2002 to 2006.